Welcome back, dear listener. This is part 7 of The Wendigo by Algernon Blackwood, number 122 in the ongoing Timeless Terror series. The men are tired, cold, and anxious. Each step they take through the forest feels heavier than the last. Their nerves are raw, and mistakes could be dangerous, even deadly. The forest is immense, the wilderness is relentless, and the men are painfully aware of how small they are in it. Let's continue with their journey. The Wendigo, Part 7. Written by Algernon Blackwood. Narrated for you by Jonathan Dunne. Original year of publication 1910. This work is in the public domain. Production and narration copyright 2026. Jonathan Dunne. Seven. A wall of silence wrapped them in, for the snow, though not thick, was sufficient to deaden any noise, and the frost held things pretty tight besides. No sound but their voices and the soft roar of the flames made itself heard. Only, from time to time, something soft as a flutter of a pine moth's wings went past them through the air. No one seemed anxious to go to bed. The hours slipped towards midnight. "The legend is picturesque enough," observed the doctor after one of the longer pauses, speaking to break it rather than because he had anything to say. "For the Wendigo is simply the call of the wild personified, which some natures hear to their own destruction." "That's about it," Hank said presently. "And there is no misunderstanding when you hear it. It calls you by name, right enough." Another pause followed. Then Dr. Cathcart came back to the forbidden subject with a rush that made the others jump. "The allegory is significant," he remarked, looking about him into the darkness. "For the voice, they say, resembles all the minor sounds of the bush. Wind, falling water, cries of the animals, and so forth. And once the victims hear that, he's off for good, of course. His most vulnerable points, moreover, are said to be the feet and the eyes. The feet, you see, for the lust of wandering, and the eyes for the lust of beauty. The poor beggar goes at such a dreadful speed that he bleeds beneath the eyes, and his feet burn." Dr. Cathcart, as he spoke, continued to peer uneasily into the surrounding gloom. His voice sank to a hushed tone. "The Wendigo," he added, "is said to burn his feet, owing to the friction apparently caused by its tremendous velocity, till they drop off and new ones form exactly like its own." Simpson listened in horrified amazement, but it was the pallor on Hank's face that fascinated him most. He would willingly have stopped his ears and closed his eyes had he dared. "It don't always keep to the ground either," came in Hank's slow, heavy drawl. "For it goes so high that he thinks the stars have set him all afire, and it'll take great thumping jumps sometimes, and run along the tops of the trees, carrying his partner with it, and then dropping him just as a fish hawk will drop a pickerel to kill it before eating. And its food, of all the muck in the whole bush, is moss." And he laughed a short, unnatural laugh. "It's a moss-eater, is the Wendigo," he added, looking up excitedly into the faces of his companions. "Moss-eater," he repeated, with a string of the most outlandish oaths he could invent. But Simpson now understood the true purpose of all this talk. What these two men, each strong and experienced in his own way, dreaded more than anything else was silence. They were talking against time. They were also talking against darkness, against the invasion of panic, against the admission reflection might bring that they were in an enemy's country, against anything, in fact, rather than allow their inmost thoughts to assume control. He himself, already initiated by the awful vigil with terror, was beyond both of them in this respect. He had reached the stage where he was immune. But these two, the scoffing, analytical doctor, and the honest, dogged backwoodsman, each sat trembling in the depths of his being. Thus the hours passed, and thus, with lowered voices and a kind of taut inner resistance of spirit, this little group of humanity sat in the jaws of the wilderness and talked foolishly of the terrible and haunting legend. It was an unequal contest, all things considered, for the wilderness had already the advantage of first attack, and of a hostage. The fate of their comrade hung over them with a steadily increasing weight of oppression that finally became unsupportable. It was Hank, after a pause longer than the preceding ones, that no one seemed able to break, who first let loose all this pent-up emotion in very unexpected fashion, by springing suddenly to his feet and letting out the most ear-shattering yell imaginable into the night. He could not contain himself any longer, it seemed. To make it carry even beyond an ordinary cry, he interrupted its rhythm by shaking the palm of his hand before his mouth. "That's for Defago! For it's my belief that the sandwich oaths may be omitted, that my old partner is not far from us at this very minute." There was a vehemence and recklessness about his performance that made Simpson, too, start to his feet in amazement, and betrayed even the doctor into letting the pipe slip from between his lips. Hank's face was ghastly, but Cathcart showed a sudden weakness, a loosening of all his faculties, as it were. Then a momentary anger blazed into his eyes, and he, too, though with deliberation born of habitual self-control, got upon his feet and faced the excited guide. For this was unpermissible, foolish, dangerous, and he meant to stop it in the bud. What might have happened in the next minute or two, one may speculate about, yet never defiantly know, for in the instant of profound silence that followed Hank's roaring voice, and as though in answer to it, something went past through the darkness of the sky overhead at terrific speed, something of necessity very large, for it displaced much air, while down below the trees there fell a faint and windy cry of a human voice, calling in tones of indescribable anguish and appeal. Oh, this fiery high! Oh, my feet of fire! My burning feet of fire! White to the very edge of his shirt, Hank looked stupidly about him like a child. Dr. Cathcart uttered some kind of unintelligible cry, turning as he did so with an instinctive movement of blind terror towards the protection of the tent, then halting in the act, as though frozen. Simpson, alone of the three, retained his presence of mind a little. His own horror was too deep to allow of any immediate reaction. He had heard that cry before. Turning to his stricken companions, he said, almost calmly, "That's exactly the cry I heard, the very words he used." Then, lifting his face to the sky, he cried aloud, "Defago! Defago, come down here to us! Come down!" And before there was time for anybody to take definite action one way or another, there came the sound of something dropping heavily between the trees, striking the branches on the way down, and landing with a dreadful thud upon the frozen earth below. The crash and thunder of it was really terrific. "That's him! Help me the good God!" came from Hank in a whispering cry, half-choked, his hand going automatically toward the hunting knife in his belt. and he's coming. He's coming. He added, with an irrational laugh of horror, as the sounds of heavy footsteps crunching over the snow became distinctly audible, approaching through the blackness towards the circle of light. And while the steps, with their stumbling motion, moved nearer and nearer upon them, the three men stood round that fire, motionless and dumb. Dr. Cathcart had the appearance of a man suddenly withered. Even his eyes did not move. Hank, suffering shockingly, seemed on the verge again of violent action, yet did nothing. He too was hewn of stone. Like stricken children they seemed. The picture was hideous, and meanwhile their owner still invisible. The footsteps came closer, crunching the frozen snow. It was endless, too prolonged to be quite real. This measured and pitiless approach, it was accursed. You've been listening to Part 7 of The Wendigo by Algernon Blackwood, number 122 in the Timeless Terror series. Men are very weary. Every decision now carries weight. The forest is vast, indifferent, and unforgiving. Until next time. And don't forget how small we are when confronted by the great wilderness. Good night. This has been The Wendigo, Part 7, written by Algernon Blackwood, narrated for you by Jonathan Dunne. Original year of publication 1910. This work is in the public domain. Production and narration copyright 2026, Jonathan Dunne.